How is everybody doing? This is the Future History Podcast. It is Friday, August 14th, 2020. On this day in history, we had... Take it away.
Japan's surrender made public. It was later known as Victory Day. An official announcement, Japan's unconditional surrender to the Allies, is made public to the world on August 14th, 1945.
Amazing.
Yep, so...
Thank God for that.
Yep.
They would have kept fighting, right?
Yeah, well, it's a, it was seen, Japan, obviously they had the kamikaze fighters and whatnot, but the Japanese culture is one that just, the honor that these people had is, and the codes, like the code of Bushido during the samurai time.
Well, it was interesting in that article, too, we were talking before, the top general who opposed the surrender committed suicide.
Yeah, it's
you don't see that much.
Harry Carey in the days of the samurai warriors. But if they were dishonored in any way, they basically committed suicide by their own sword, or they kind of impaled themselves on the sword, and that was considered the honorable way for a samurai warrior.
What mental fortitude it would take to take a long knife and find a way to jam that into yourself.
Like shish kebab yourself, yeah.
They did. And they had a science on how they would actually do it, too. There was like a method,
It was considered the honorable way to go out.
Yeah.
But
there's some truth to that, I would say. Rather than being captured, if you really...
Sure.
If you saw no alternative. Their mentality must have been insane.
Well, you look at the kamikaze warriors. They knew they weren't coming home from that flight. They went right at the deck of those aircraft carriers. And
do you think they were all drugged, or do you think some of them just did it?
I think some of them just did it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that they, it's when it's ingrained in somebody, and it's ingrained from a young age, and the whole society, felt it was about the country. It wasn't necessarily about the individual. They're not. That's the culture of that country is based on, doing for the greater good.
Yeah.
So the kamikazes were, and what's funny is, well, it's not even funny, but what's interesting is, as they started to run low on pilots, some guys were just trained for a few hours and how to fly a plane, and they would just,
the less training the better.
Right, and they just basically the first flight was to of any note was to launch right into these large ships, and to me that's the type of mental fortitude I couldn't imagine. Just knowing that flight, that was it. You're not seeing your family, you're not seeing anybody else. Your life is done on this flight, and
those people really, their belief system might have been a little different than, just like North Koreans, for example. They have a different set of gods. They have Kim Jong-un is like the god there. So they probably just don't see reality in the same way.
I mean, that's, Asia.
Big difference, but
you're right, because that
the emperor at the time, though, was essentially the same kind of cult of personality.
Yep.
That,
he's seen as a god,
right.
That's really what it's, and
would that be considered a demigod? Is that what that's called?
Yes. Yep. And they're considered, they're a different entity than the people that they're.
Well, they say Kim. I mean, they made jokes about it, but apparently people do believe that Kim Jong-un doesn't use the bathroom, and
they have this whole where the person basically walks on water. That's
right.
That's how they view him. So
now, who's more scary, him or his sister?
He's an interesting character because he grew up with a lot of Western. A lot of these guys, a lot of these dictators, and a lot of these guys from the Eastern world, they eat up American culture. They eat up Western culture, and that's how come Dennis Rodman was able to make inroads into that country.
Yeah, because he can't stop watching the basketball.
He loved basketball. I think Michael Jordan was his favorite player, and Jordan did not want to go over there. I think they did ask him, and he wasn't into going.
I wonder how he felt about baseball, because that's a real American
it's a real American sport. But look, Japan has a huge following. I mean, they have their own league over there.
Yeah.
It's
And
Asian
they're amazing
baseball is a big
baseball
thing.
players,
Yeah,
right?
there's-
Remember Hideki Matsui?
Yeah,
He was
there-
always like
yep.
the rage.
There's a lot of Japanese. There's a lot of Korean. There's I don't want to say a lot, but there's been some that have made careers in the major leagues. And,
Can I ask you, whatever happened to Jabba Chamberlain? I stopped following sports right around that time. Where
He's an interesting story.
I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, Jabba Chamberlain was. There was a three. The Mets had this too at one time. There were three pitchers that the Yankees had during this time period. It was like right after the 90s dynasty, or like towards the tail end of the 90s dynasty. And Jabba Chamberlain, Ian Kennedy, and Philip Hughes were three pitchers the Yankees had down in the minor leagues that were considered the future. They were considered the next Yankee rotation for the decade coming up, and they were going to lead the Yankees into the World Series. So Philip Hughes came up, and I remember watching a game. He pitched a few, this was like maybe his first or second game, and he threw his arm out. And he was pitching great at that point. So he had some injury problems. His career, I think he might still be pitching. I think he ended on the Twins for a little while. But anyway, his career went okay, decent. Ian Kennedy became like a journeyman. He went, played for the Arizona Diamondbacks a little bit. Jabba Chamberlain, though, had an interesting deal. He was originally a starter. Okay, so he was, supposed to go 6-7 innings a game, and he was a flamethrower. I mean, the guy threw 100 miles an hour.
I remember around that time I would work out with you, and we'd check him on the TVs in the gym.
Yep.
He was throwing 101, 102, 103.
He was throwing gas.
And he was accurate.
Yes.
Hitting his marks.
And it was an interesting story, too, because his father, Harlan, was in a wheelchair, and they used to photograph him at the games, and they'd have, it was like a feel-good story. He was, like a chubby kid growing up.
Also Native American, right?
He was part Native American, yeah. So there was a lot of intrigue with this guy coming up. So then they created something called the Jabba Rules, which were basically they were trying to limit his amount of innings that he was pitching, and they were really babying him, and they do that with a lot of pitchers nowadays. Back in the old days, pitchers would throw 150 pitches like nothing. They would just
well,
go.
they also didn't play with gloves.
Yeah, so I mean, technology and science improves, and
It was
medicine
amazing
improves.
watching that when we did those Civil War reenactments.
Yeah.
They actually played a game of baseball how it would have been played.
Right.
And I remember this guy smacks this line drive right
Right.
to center field.
Right.
And the center fielderman, he just jumped and kind of like caught it with his hands.
Yep.
And this was like, in 2004.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was 1860.
Yeah, well,
that was a
reenacting,
modern set of hands took
Right.
that.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, I'm sure their hands were calloused from working the fields and everything.
But when you see the speed of the ball,
sure.
that ball was cruising.
Yep.
The guy, I mean, how did they? And they had decently long careers. They played at least 5 years.
And they weren't
They took
getting
a-
paid a lot either back then. But Jabba Chamberlain, let me finish what happened.
Yeah,
with
go
him.
ahead.
He had this Jabba Rules, and I remember watching him, and I went to see him pitch at Yankee Stadium, and he was cruising through the first several innings, and by the fifth inning, he was still hitting 100 miles an hour. He was in the high 90s, and they yanked him,
Beast.
and they pulled him out, and it was all designed to keep him from blowing his arm out. So then they ended up making him, he got injured. They ended up making him a relief pitcher. So he was doing well. So he was coming in, pitching the 8th, 9th inning, and he was a flamethrower. So he was doing well as a back end of the staff in the bullpen. But what happened? There was a game in Cleveland where they had these things called midges, which I guess are like mosquitoes, or they're just bugs that especially along waterways and stuff. And during the game, it's Joe Torre's biggest regret, he said, was not pulling his team off of the field. It was the playoffs in Cleveland, and you see Chamberlain on the mound, and he's got this horde of bugs attacking him, and he's wiping his face, trying to be able to pitch the ball, and the game backfired. The Yankees, I believe, ended up losing the game.
Jeez.
But his career,
I remember that actually when you mentioned the
it's
Bucks.
almost like
Yeah.
a microcosm of his career, because his career just was like it never really gained any traction. He had the stuff, he had, but he was starting to get in trouble a little bit. He had gotten in trouble, and he was making fun of Yogi Berra to the cops, and he was a
You
young
don't make
guy.
fun of Yogi Berra.
Yeah, that's Yankee royalty, and but he was a young guy, and he was excitable when he would come off the mound. He would always pump his fists. He had this whole he would get the crowd pumped watching him.
He was a hype man.
Yeah, he was. He was his own hype man. But the career that he should have had never took place. Actually, the career of all three of those pitchers never took place.
Yeah, there was 3 hot shots at that time.
Kennedy,
Yeah.
Philip Hughes, and Chamberlain, and
Right.
not one of them ever reached their potential. And the same thing happened with the Mets like 10 years prior to that. They had these 3 pitchers, Jason Isringhausen, Bill Pulsifer, and Paul Wilson, maybe I want to say. They were 3 guys, same thing. They were, 2 of them were flamethrowers. One of them was just a great pitcher. They just never panned out. But that's the thing with sports, it's a 1 in a million shot.
Right.
Just, but Chamberlain's career it flamed out.
So on the topic of sports, robotic and cardboard cutout fans. I'm not sure. We might have touched on this for a second.
Yeah, we did a little bit,
But it's
but
like
not
every
much.
morning it's on the news.
Yeah,
And it's like refreshing your memory to something that's so new
it's bizarre.
that
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I was watching the hockey playoffs, and the guy scores and raises his fist, skates over to the boards, and then you look and there's nobody in the audience.
Right.
It's bizarre. So yeah,
and it probably hurts the players' morale a little bit, because I'm sure one of the things they were looking forward to is being in those in those stadiums with all
Sure.
those people
that's home field advantage.
going nuts.
That's what home field advantage is about. You feel in the crowd. You get, you're used to playing in your arena, so you know the little
Yeah.
nooks and crannies inside of the rink or the field. But yeah, the crowd makes a huge difference, and it's definitely it's a whole new world in sports that way. I mean, it's just odd, and it takes away from me. It takes away from the experience of watching the game.
Yeah, because
they-
you don't see the funny.
Yeah, and
you know,
and the crowd just pumped after a goal or whatever. It's not the
the
same.
morale of the players is different.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
There's
It-
not that same
Sure.
jumping up and down.
the season as a whole has to feel different. I mean, even if you're an athlete, it can't feel the same. I mean, all the seasons are abbreviated. They're not
Yeah.
playing full seasons in any sport. Some guys are opting out.
So can you explain? Because I don't follow sports
Mm-hmm.
too much, but could you kind of explain how they're conducting the season this year in baseball? Anyway, like they're doing.
Yeah,
60
they're doing
games.
a 60-game season, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm glad there's sports, and I'm kind of keeping up with it as much as I can. I haven't really looked into what they're doing as far as the playoffs, though. If they're going to do the same type of scenario that they always do.
normal series,
Yeah, like
yeah.
with the wild card teams and whatnot. I imagine they will, and they'll base it off of a 60-game season. But I don't know. I'm just not sure how the playoffs. But yeah, they're doing 60 games, and I guess they're trying to keep the players as healthy as they can.
Yeah.
Because it is an odd it's an odd season, and like they had a doubleheader the other day, and they only did 7 innings in each game.
Right.
So it's usually a 9-inning game, so they did 7 innings
Very
for
strange.
each game. It's very strange season, and that's in all sports. It's
I
not
see.
in just
Why
one.
would they make that adjustment? Why would they take 2 innings off of a game?
Because again, the players, they want to keep. When you don't have as much training
Right.
before the season, you're not as fresh. Your muscles aren't as muscle memory comes back, especially for pitchers.
So they're
Their
trying
arms
to
are
let
in
players
shape.
rest.
Yeah, so it's just if you're playing two games that day, instead of 2 9-inning games, you're getting 2 7-inning games. So it's just not as taxing on the players, and that's what they're doing. So
You know how in all right, so they're going to do a 60-game kind of
regular
setup,
season.
regular season.
Yep.
And that's happening with sports across the board.
Yeah, they're doing right now in hockey and basketball. They're doing abbreviated seasons as well. I don't, not hockey is already in the playoffs, so I don't really know.
I had a newfound respect for hockey because they refuse to kneel.
Oh, for the national anthem.
They
That's a whole
refused.
other.
Yeah, I mean, but it's sports,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
No, I
And,
agree. it's an interesting thing. I mean, I don't know. Everybody thought baseball would kind of step back from that also. The NFL jumped into it, but baseball didn't. The players had the, I think some of them knelt, and they had the shirts on supporting it. And,
it's just amazing to me
it's a
because
business at the end
baseball
of the
is
day.
really like an American pillar.
Yeah, it sure is, especially in the
And-
Northeast. You're right.
Yeah.
It is. It's it was America's game. And, football's kind of,
Even hockey's not America. Like
No.
baseball in particular, and football is more rugby.
Right.
But so is baseball. Baseball goes back to cricket, I would say.
Yeah.
But
baseball is seen as, especially, like I said, during the war eras,
the
World
biggest
War
team is
II.
called the Yankees.
Right. Yep. It's,
I mean,
yeah, baseball. It's like when you think of Americana, you think of
it's apple
baseball.
pie, baseball,
Especially
and
like I
Corvettes.
said in the Northeast, it's always had a strong fan base. But at the end of the day, these games, they're all business.
Yeah.
And these owners are in it to make money. And you get some owners that like the sports and they're passionate about it. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make money. So you're dealing with different sponsors. You have a lot of pressure from the public. You have a lot of different... Look, I mean, the Washington Redskins have vehemently fought changing the name of their team
Yep.
for all these years, and now this year they're finally changing the name. And, it's a business, and that's whatever's going to make more money at the end of the season. And a lot of these teams...
I just want to point
lose
out, I
money.
would actually like to hear from viewership on this one. Like,
Yep.
what are your thoughts on the Redskins changing their name? Does it bother you? Does the name offend you, or does it not bother you? Because to me, I always found it great. I gotta say, I never saw, just like the Chicago. There's like an Indian Native
Cleveland
American.
Indians, you mean? Or
Well, there's the Cleveland Indians, but there's also, I think it's a hockey team, the Blackhawks.
Blackhawks, yeah.
They have a very,
One of the nicest jerseys that you'll ever see in
Sick.
sports. Yeah.
and it actually honors.
Yeah,
I mean, they're being
this is a
featured
tough
in.
call, and
Yeah.
I agree. To me, but I'm not a Native American. But I can tell you, if they had an Italian team, and it was called the Mobsters, or something,
Right.
so some type of knock against Italians, I could care less.
Yeah.
It just doesn't affect me as much. But
The Pizza Men.
this cancel culture is one that anything that is can be targeted will be targeted, and I think it's ridiculous that after all these years, and they make it like it's a the guy that owns the team now, he had nothing to do with naming the team. To me, it's I think you can.
What are they going with as far as a name?
I'm not sure. For some reason, I've heard a lot of different names tossed out. Somebody said it was the Washington Football. I did, but that didn't seem like they were settling on it. So I don't know. But if any of the viewers know what the name is, if they've come up with it yet, I've heard
Everything
people
is
suggesting
becoming so homogenized.
it is, and that
We're
is-
losing
yes,
our little
yes.
streak of what made
Yes.
us wild to begin with,
or interesting,
or
Absolutely.
or fun, or characteristic, or whatever the case may be. We're
Yep.
becoming like milk that's been
Yeah.
boiled a
Well, you
thousand
look at the
times.
city. When you look at New York City, it used to be, you'd have all the little neighborhoods, the village and some of the other areas that had real character to it,
Yeah.
and it had a real flavor of what all the different ethnic groups were bringing in: the Jews, the Italians, the Asians. It had a real flair. But as time has gone on, even Little Italy has shrunk more
It's
and
a
more
block.
and more. Now it's like a block.
And it's a joke.
Yeah,
I'm
and
no
it-
offense to Little Italy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
from what it used to be to what I
Yeah.
saw a few years back when I
It's a
went,
joke.
it's a block.
It's a
You
joke.
have some pretty good restaurants. I would argue that Long Island actually has better Italian food.
Yep.
I went to, no disrespect to Lombardi's Pizza, that's in Little Italy.
Yeah, sure.
But I went there and they have pictures of Jack Nicholson on the wall. You name it, it's
Yep.
New York City.
Yep.
So I ordered their little special Neapolitan pie.
Okay.
Apparently, it's supposed to be the best in America.
Yeah.
Right.
From Little Italy.
From
it
Little
seems,
Italy.
yeah.
It literally was. I'd much prefer to go to our local
Local
spots.
pizzeria. Yeah.
It was just not what we know
took
as
you
pizza.
guys when your mother and I took you to.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and
that
I
was
don't
nice.
remember which restaurant we went to. We went to Ferraro's, I believe, after it
Yeah.
to get some type
I'd
of
been to
pastry or whatever.
Carmine's before. That place is all right.
Yeah, there's some good. I went to Vincent's with your grandfather and your grandmother.
That place, they make the best calamari.
Yeah, I went with your mother, and she could attest to this. That was the hottest food I've ever eaten till this day. They had, the hot tomato sauce.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah, and I love hot food. I eat hot sauce on everything. The
red pepper flakes.
your grandfather warned me. He said, "Don't order the hot. Order medium." I couldn't eat. I couldn't finish the meal.
Yeah.
And it was that spicy. But yeah, I mean, Little Italy, everything in New York and all these other cities. It's hard. Sometimes it's like you look at a city on the map. I'm sorry, on TV, and instantly you can recognize certain cities. It's becoming more and more difficult to recognize the skylines of certain cities because everything is starting to look very similar. I mean,
Homogenized.
when I took a trip in 6th grade, it was back before, obviously, well before 9/11. We were, schools would take trips into New York City, and I'm sure they still do, but not to the extent and the freedom that the kids had to kind of walk around. We went to the Empire State Building. We visited the Intrepid when it was docked there.
Oh yeah, I've been
And
there.
the
Something that boat huge.
Times Square and some of these other areas, you had the triple X signs and all the peep shows, but regardless, you knew like the city just felt like a real gritty city. It had a hard edge to it.
It was the city of the Ramones. It was the CBGBs.
That's
the
the type of
downtown,
New York, and that's what's not. And then now you go to the city and you feel like you're a tourist in your own city. It's just everything is big. Everything is.
I've never
designed
gone to New York City and felt at home.
No, it's
Every time I'm in the city, I want to go back home. To tell you the truth,
yeah, it
it's
does
nice.
nothing.
But there's
nothing.
far too many people. I can't handle the screeching from underground of the subways, and it's just too much for me.
Oh, okay. So you're getting over
The stimuli just
It was
freak-
like
it's-
that back then too. It was very noisy. But it was just. It had a real grit to it, and it had a real. Like I said, all the flair from the different ethnicities were on display in the city, and now it's just everything is blended. It's like corporate America. It's these large companies, large stores, and it's the huge, the Targets, the Walmarts, these types of stores, and it just feels very plain. It has nothing that. You used to have these turns, and you'd make all these little turns down alleys in the city, and you'd think you'd catch all these little weird, just shops that you wouldn't see before, and those places are just gone. It's not the same. And
I gotta say, I believe I was in St. Mark's when I got this over here, this tattoo. Mm-hmm. St. Mark's was pretty cool.
Yep.
It was kind of like a It's just like a weird, maybe like a weirdo spot, which sometimes is cool.
Right.
It's like for some period of time, and then you want to go home. But
sure,
it was interesting, and I, but the city just
it doesn't feel like it used to
changed.
feel back in the day.
Yeah,
It really does.
It has.
And like I said, the kids, when we used to go into the city, you never knew what you were going to see, and now it feels like. You're just walking through a large, department store. There's no flair. There's no,
I mean, if you stand in Times Square, so, you can't just stand anywhere.
Right.
So it's like there's too many rules. There's too many regulations.
Well, after 9/11, everything is tightened up. That it wasn't like that back then. Like I said, I told you that I had, me and another kid that was on the trip with me when we went to the Empire State Building. We were just walking around the streets, and some of the parents were chaperoning, and they were remotely close to us, but we had a lot of freedom to kind of walk around, and it wasn't this, ever since 9/11 it's just changed. Everything is over supervised, and it's the world we live in. I mean, you have to do it, I guess, but it just took away all the wonderment
things,
you feel of being a
right.
kid going to the city. It's just not there.
And it's just like nowadays, there's so, like you kind of were to your point before about how all these other cities are starting to look very similar from a distance.
Very.
Nobody really regards New York City or LA like the end all be all of
What they
cities
used to.
anymore. Like
Yeah.
nowadays, like Austin, these cities are just booming.
Yeah.
Nashville, Tennessee,
Yep.
Miami. So there's a lot of different options for people to really enjoy now that there's the best of
New
what New
York-
York has to offer without the worst of it.
New York used to be it. It was the the hub of everything, and you think about it. We live 45 minutes away from one of the greatest cities in the world, and we're still. It's like you can't even take advantage.
You
of
really
it.
couldn't even pay me to go.
No,
And
there's
I'm
nothing.
nothing
that draws me there. And anybody who's going to visit the city nowadays from another state, prepare for just a large, like you're just being
Herded through.
herded through, and that's it. It's just move them on and look at this building, look at that. But there's no what you used to look for in the city. Like I said, you look if you're coming from the middle of the country or the Midwest and you're walking,
It'll be mesmerizing for sure, but it's
the size of it.
Yeah.
The large buildings. But as far as seeing the
culture.
the panache, I guess you could say, that the city used to have, just not there anymore.
No.
It's really not. And
No. I'll tell you, Chinatown's huge.
Chinatown
never shrunk.
It's tremendous, and it dwarfs Little Italy now.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean,
Dwarfs it.
there's so many things I could say that I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say, but
Yep.
it's a shame because Little Italy at one time was a place that
Little Italy
was like
a
magic.
happening place.
Yeah.
It really was. It was
It's
a happening
funny. One
place.
time I went down there though, and there was like, it's,
Little Italy was a happening place back in the day.
it really was. It really, really was.
You want to?
So, what do you? Yeah, I'll take one of those. What do you got there? You want to share with the class?
Yeah, this is not marijuana. I know. People are wondering what we're rolling. It's just,
Tell us about it.
yeah, it's just rolling paper, Rizla rolling papers. You can't really. This particular it's licorice flavor, and you can't
Where are
really.
those from?
What's that?
Where are those from?
I actually ordered these online. I tried to find them in some of the local tobacco stores. Supposedly, licorice actually opens the airwaves a little bit when you're smoking, and it's supposed to give it a smoothness, which it does, I have to say. Compared to regular cigarettes, I much prefer these, and that's why I've stuck with smoking them. But yeah, it's a licorice flavored rolling paper called Rizla's the brand. They've been around since the 1700s. It's very big over in Europe. It's not as easy to find this particular type. You could find Rizla, but you just can't. The licorice flavored is really tough to find. And just American Spirit tobacco.
This isn't the drum?
No, this is American Spirit today. Sometimes I use
sure.
the drum, yeah.
All right, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, but it's got a better taste than regular cigarettes. And regular cigarettes, everything they put in it is caca. So smoking in general, kids, is bad. Don't smoke.
However,
Don't smoke.
most ancient societies and native tribe, this and that, they always had like their form of the peace pipe.
Yeah, well, don't
What's that
smoke.
about?
It's always it's much of what it is today. It's a social thing, and I think also back in the day, what they were smoking in those pipes might have not necessarily been only tobacco. So I think that they were doing it for other reasons.
Yeah.
But when I started smoking, you were able to go. I think I've told you about this. I was 12 years old riding my bike to go get a pack of cigarettes, and I think about it now, and it's like you can't it's a different world, it really is. And they knew cigarettes were bad back then, but it.
I got to say, it's very smooth.
Yeah,
It's
they
nice.
are. And again, like I said,
It's just,
the whole process of rolling it
yeah,
hopefully makes me,
smoke less.
yeah, anything to smoke. I don't really smoke much during the day.
I understand that.
But it, back when I was young, you were able to get cigarettes anywhere you wanted, and for the most part, kids can get them, and it was not shunned, or looked down upon as much. All the restaurants had ashtrays in them. You'd go to McDonald's, they'd have these little tin ashtrays at all the tables. It wasn't a smoking section, non-smoking section. It was just everybody was, smoked. And you know, I grew up unfortunately in a family where there were a lot of smokers, and you know, it's not something that I.
Well, it's tough when you're a kid.
Yeah,
I remember
I wish I didn't smoke. Let's put it
those
that
who
way.
had a grandma like I did.
Oh. Yeah.
You know, like I was kind of born at a
She
time.
smoked in her sleep.
Well, she would put me between her breasts.
Yeah.
And I was like this little nugget. And, you know, at that time, like, people didn't think, oh, smoking is bad, whatever.
Right.
Screw the kids, I guess. And I'd be right there, and she'd have the cigarette right dangling above my head.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Like you were almost smoking.
I was smoking it. Like, yeah.
No, no. Look,
But
you know what?
It's, you know, some of the brightest minds. J.R.R. Tolkien,
Mhm.
pipe smoker.
Yep.
Albert Einstein, pipe smoker.
Right.
You know, so like tobacco has, and I on some podcasts that we both follow, like people have touched on this. Tobacco has some effects on the brain
It
that
does.
actually promote
It does.
healthy thinking.
The problem with the cigarettes, look, anything that you're inhaling is, you know, carcinogens. It's not good. There's no question, and I'm never going to sit here and fight and say
It's good.
it's good.
It's the worst thing you could do.
It's shit. Smoking is shit. But
But if you're trying to write a book, pick up a
But-
pack.
you know, at the same point, the world we're living in, especially today, there's enough stress, there's enough bad things that you're taking in mentally,
There's enough rules.
physically. One more thing, you know, and but anyway, like I said, unfortunately, I was the way I started smoking was riding my bike as a paper boy. Walked up, dropped the paper on the, you know, inside the front door, and saw a pack of Marlboros laying there.
Always happens.
Yeah, and you know, just being curious as a kid. And they used to sell cigarettes as gum, like they were gum cigarettes.
The
when I
ice
was a
cream
kid.
truck, I think, still
Yeah,
sells them,
yeah.
actually, which is crazy.
It is crazy. So we would blow them, and they would like smoke would come out. It was like a powder.
Yeah.
But I took a couple of the cigarettes from the pack of Marlboros, and then there was an industrial park by my house. There was a bunch of factories, and there was these truck cabs that were backed up against the factory buildings. And we used to search these trucks as kids. It was something to do during the day.
Yeah.
And underneath it, there was a crate, and it was filled with all different types of cigarettes. It had Bel Air. It had all women's cigarettes, Virginia Slims, you know. But regardless, it was cigarettes, and we you know, me and my friend had taken them and, you know, taken some packs, and honestly, it just never stopped. And I've gone through stretches where I've quit for a few years. But I'm not a heavy smoker. I don't smoke during the day. I try to just almost like what a cigar smoker is.
Yeah.
I try to keep it at that level. But you know, like I said, it's just a different world today. Everything like that is not.
Well, now they got vapes. Now it's.
I think those are
it's-
worse than cigarettes.
I
I'm
would
sorry.
I would agree because it's just juice.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
think
just-
think vapes are worse than cigarettes. I really do.
yeah.
You know, you don't know what you're breathing in, and
I had a very strange experience with vapes. There was one point in time where I was like trying to get off cigarettes, and I
Right.
picked up a Juul. And
I never vaped before, so I wouldn't know.
you know,
what to-
first of all, the thing is like viciously addictive. Like
Oh,
you
the
end up
vape?
just like having it in your hand all the time. You think you can get away with it wherever you're at, and so you take advantage of that freedom.
right.
Then you lose it because it's this big. And then you find yourself in a frenzy running around, digging through your couch. Where the hell's the Juul? Then I got a very strange feeling like in my body that I never felt before from,
Right.
and this is about 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that I never felt again after, you know, like
Yeah.
I think I really
Yeah.
accredit it to the Juul. I mean,
Right. What flavor was it that you were smoking?
just like regular.
regular.
Yeah.
What does it taste like? Does it like,
It's hard to explain. It's almost like s'moresy, burnt marshmallowy. It's like figgy. Their best attempt to get like that tobacco.
Oh, okay. So
smell.
it was trying to taste like a tobacco.
But it doesn't.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. It tastes more of like a food grade latte additive.
Yeah. Look, if you're gonna do something, then do it.
Right.
If you're gonna smoke something, fuck
Anything
the
you do in
vape.
life, yeah,
Smoke.
right, just-
smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because anything like, you know, that's why again the cigarettes too. Once they're man-made and the big companies come in and they start pumping in the chemicals, even the American spirits they sell, the paper still has chemicals on it. It's not any
Well,
better.
growing tobacco isn't exactly a walk in the park either. and procuring it.
No,
It is a true labor-intensive
it's almost an
crop.
art. Yeah, it really is. It's not easy. Yep.
Yeah. So, but they've been doing it forever, for a long time anyway.
It's
I want to say going
huge
back
crop
to the
in
15.
American history. That's for sure. It's one of the biggest crops down. That
It's
we
funny
had
how
in
once Europe got their hands on something that they liked, they never let it go.
they never let it go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And but like I said, nowadays I see people smoking when I pass. If I pass an office, and it's like you got to be 50 feet away from the building. It's taken away. The government is basically taken away all the pleasure of smoking in public. So really, for me, the only time I do it is at night.
It's also becoming incredibly unfavorable in the workplace.
Well, that's what I said. When you pass
Yeah.
an office, people,
Yeah.
absolutely, and anything, and
Like I
it's-
notice on job interviews and things
Yeah, sure.
they'll like mention
Yeah.
like cigarette smokers are real troublesome
right. Well, because
because they get more breaks.
right.
So I get that. Back in the days, everybody smoked, so you couldn't single someone out.
You remember the office that I worked in that I used to, when I was teaching at the time, but I used to take you in the summers when I did some summer work.
Is this with the Dreamcast and the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And this was after the time that they banned smoking in the
Yeah,
workplace.
smoking in there, right?
Everybody would smoke in there, but not even like you'd have a designated area. They smoked at the desk.
Right.
And this was so guys stayed on the phone, hammered. It was a real boiler room. They hammered the phone, and they just
It's like a sweatshop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, they stayed on the
They'll
phone.
give you whatever you need.
Yeah.
Don't move.
It's it's a sales team.
Yeah.
So guys, they're pounding on the phones, and most of them were smokers, and but that was his way of combating the breaks. But he wasn't a smoker, the guy that ran the place, and you walk in there, and it was like,
He probably had like 4 air filters set up
oh,
in
it
his
was awful.
office.
It was awful. I mean, look, I don't think that people who don't smoke should have to breathe in smoke. Like I'm not somebody that thinks,
Right,
it's
'cause
too
the
bad I
argument is-
smoke.
right.
It's my bad habit. It shouldn't become your habit. So
What they
I
should do
agree
though
with
is like I don't understand why there's not an option for like let's say a bar owner where you can open up a smoking bar, and then you'd have
Right.
groups of like why not
Why? Because government doesn't like to let people
make their own
make
choices?
their own choices. Correct.
It's disgusting. Not saying smoking's good,
Right.
but like how
Give people the option.
right.
And it's not good. Look, like I said, my goal is to quit smoking. I don't want to keep smoking. It's not a good thing. And I don't smoke a lot. Like I said, it's very, I treat it almost as like a luxury once in
Yeah.
a while. But regardless, it's,
I think Joe Rogan gets these like nice. I saw it on his podcast a few weeks ago. He gets these really nice rolled up tobacco mini cigars.
Okay.
And they're almost like cone shaped, but they come in this like nice glass vial, and they
Yes.
look pretty good.
Yeah.
There's no marijuana or anything in them, but it's probably a little stronger than that, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Yep. I've seen a lot of these things that they sell now that just, they try to, they're trying to ape on this new culture they have with the CBD and the oils that all these places sell, and they have,
Athletes swear by CBD though when
Yeah,
it's in
they do.
joint ointments.
yep. So,
UFC fighters and
yep. Look,
It's got to end. Like, you remember when Michael Phelps was, like, slammed because he had smoked
Sure.
weed?
Yeah.
What was the point of ruining that poor
Right.
guy's career and tarnishing his name for that? For what everyone knows is no big deal anyway. Except for people who are probably, like, 70 and up.
it's one of those things in this country that, first off, if the government doesn't have their hands in it taxing it, it's something that they're not going to be happy about. Plus, you have the different lobbyists. Anybody that's in the alcohol business, it's not going to want anybody, marijuana to become legalized because
Right.
of the fact that it lowers their, could take away from their business. There's a lot of reasons, but it's again, it's all. The government does not allow people to, especially it seems like it's becoming less and less freedom of choice in this country.
Right. Well, you have to be a certain way now.
Our
You have
rights
to-
are being taken away right under our noses. I mean, it's,
And while everybody's distracted with
Yeah.
COVID, it's become easier than ever.
they did it after 9/11 with the Patriot Act. What they do is they make legislation. They try to when there is an event that happens like a 9/11, it's like the government goes into high gear passing laws because they know while everybody's distracted with these events and everybody's
Right.
scared, they know that they can further reach their hands in and grab our right, grab people's rights away.
Well,
and
that's what all
shift
these
it over to
that's
the
what all
government.
these meetings are about. That's what all these like chamber meetings
Yep.
are. They're and
So they
you hear it, like you hear on all different sides when they interview people outside the Capitol building,
Right.
like they don't want to compromise, because there's
Right.
it's not like they're just talking about your unemployment money. They're talking about a lot of other stuff
Right.
that goes along with that, which is why deals are accepted and denied.
when 9/11
Right.
happened, they the Patriot Act was one of the results of it, and they used that act to get into different businesses. That was how they got in when my business had the issues. They came in and they said that the Patriot Act, we were in violation of this Patriot Act, and it was one day when I talk about my business and how I
Yeah.
got into this, I'll explain it more. But it was, first of all, it was unfounded, and it was decided that way. It was the case was kiboshed, but I remember them using the Patriot Act, and I said, these guys, this act was passed, and they used it. Oh, we're protecting people and things, but anything that they can use that act for to get money from businesses to kind of squeeze people, they're going to do it. So right now, it's another point in history where they're going to be. You got to watch the laws and watch the amendments.
But it's
that are
different
passed.
because it's not under the fears of terrorism. It is under the fears of public health.
Right.
So
right.
it's a different.
Well, that's what they
it's
do.
more individual.
They always will use this idea that they're doing it for the greater good, for the betterment of people and health and safety. But it's really designed. It's just more of a grab of our rights.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, when I explained what happened with the business, it was a complete fallacy that they had with the Patriot Act. But
that was implemented straight from the top brass, right? That came from the
Yeah.
president.
sure, yep, Patriot Act. And it's something that it's
Funny
cited.
how everybody hated Bush, and now people like talk about him as if he was like a great leader.
Really.
I find that.
I
Yeah, I
haven't
find
heard
that like he gets more
I haven't heard that.
revered today
Well,
than at the time, because
as
at the
time
time it was
passes,
ugly.
yeah, as
People
time
were
passes.
treating him
Sure.
like how they treat Trump almost, right? Calling him stupid, that he doesn't know how to read.
Yeah, I don't
throwing
think it's.
shoes at
I've
his
never
head.
seen a president get the treatment that Trump has gotten, though. I don't.
No.
Yeah, but
But at least Trump's built to deal with it. Not everybody's built that way, and I'm sure it probably wasn't that easy for Bush, because I remember he took a lot of heat in the press all the time, every day. Not as bad as Trump.
you have a lot of people that think it was an inside job, which we're not. We're not getting into that. But I'm
That's
saying
heavy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that think that. So I mean, but let's say it was what it was and what it was portrayed as.
Right.
Then yeah, it would be a difficult thing. He's sitting there reading to a group of kids, and he was notified about it. But when these events happen, things that have never happened before,
Yeah.
I don't envy the Look, I don't envy these guys.
It's a hard job.
It's a hard job, and I don't pretend to think that I could do a better job than they can. And it's very easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and say, hey, this guy, what an idiot! He should have done this. He should have
Right.
done that. These are unprecedented events that happen, and that's why you hire. You have the best. You fill the cabinet with the most. You try to get the most qualified people, and your inner circle. You try to get people that you can bounce ideas off of and
Yeah.
formulate a cohesive opinion and a stance on it. But it's very difficult, and we're seeing it today. And when you have a country where you have two political parties, there's more than two, but for all intents and purposes, we're a two political party system, and it's difficult. It's very difficult to come up with a cohesive statement, and Bush had a lot to deal with back then. He had a lot to deal with, but the point of the matter is though they passed legislation, and then as in years to come, it tightens the reins that we have on freedom. Some of our freedom is taken away, and they use this guise of safety and of helping you live longer or anything, and it's really
It's funny how hard the pushback is for the Second Amendment when they try to come after guns. A lot of people ain't playing games. You're not taking our guns. And
I think
that's
you're seeing
like
how important the Second Amendment is
right.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because during COVID, I mean, we live in New York, obviously. When COVID broke,
Right.
like let's call it March 13th, me and the business owner I work for took a trip to Dick's Sporting Goods, and he wanted to go buy a bunch of ammo. And
Smart to get out there right away.
Yeah, we were all loaded
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So we all took a trip to
Yeah.
Dick's. We were on it. There was nothing. There was no guns left on the
None.
shelves.
None.
All the guns were like the ugly ones that
Yeah,
nobody
right.
wants
Sure.
anyway. And they didn't have any shotgun shells. They didn't have any handgun shell, like nothing.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
And
It's still like that. They post that, a store will say, we just got a shipment in, we got, all these cases of ammo, we got the guns, and by the time you get to the store, they're sold out.
right.
It's
So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and
Yep.
the opposite reaction of this COVID lockdown
Yeah.
was that everybody and their mother and grandmother went out and bought a piece.
Sure.
And
Imagine how
thank
many,
God for that.
Yeah, imagine how many guns there are now. And
Right.
it's
it's going to
everybody's
be
like-
harder and harder
Yeah.
and harder to
Yeah.
take them away with every little
Yeah.
bit of bullshit that they try to push
You
forward.
can't take this. Look, the Second Amendment is, to me, just as important as the First Amendment. You wouldn't have a
Any
First Amendment
amendments
without
without
a
the second.
Yeah, you need the Second Amendment. You need it.
It would be
And,
nice to live in a world where everyone would come up and give you a few bucks,
Sure.
rub you on your back, make
Utopia.
you some warm milk.
Utopia. It would be great.
But unfortunately, it
exist.
doesn't happen.
Doesn't exist. And you need at the end of the day, you need to be able to protect your family,
Right.
And you need to be able to protect what's yours. And the Second Amendment was put in place as a protection of the First Amendment in many cases, and also they knew that if the citizens did not have the right to arm themselves, they had no, government could just come right in and just run roughshod over the population. And
Well, this is my big, like personally, my big hole with the American philosophy, pretty
Yep.
much,
Okay.
is that this country was founded under the principles and guidelines that the government was to protect us from the government.
right. And
But now we work for the government, and the government tells us how to live. So, and if anybody argues that, they're just wrong.
right, yep. It all.
I mean, basic taxation is a crime.
Yeah. Well, it all started.
They can tax, but they need good representation. And back in those days, everything that was
That was
having
one
money.
of the main battles was taxation without
Right.
representation. Yeah.
So what pisses me off is, like, I have a lot of friends in other states, a lot of more conservative states, by the way, and they don't pay property tax every year. Why would you pay tax on a piece of land that you already own?
Right.
In New York, you're just renting your property
Yeah.
from the town.
Basically. Yep.
But in
Well,
other
New York is a tough state in the amount of red tape
Yeah.
for anything, even to get a gun, to get a handgun in New York. It's extremely difficult.
Yep.
I mean, it's one of the hardest. Most guys that have licenses in other states don't even bother bringing their pieces with them when they come into New York State because it's just
Well,
it's
just
too
to
hard.
shoot back to New York City, like if you have a daughter who's going there for a little whatever and have a night of fun, something, she can't carry pepper spray.
Yeah.
She can't carry pepper spray walking around Manhattan.
Yep. It's one of the toughest
can't-
states regulation-wise.
I can't deal
for
with that.
anything. Yeah, it's a
Every
joke.
thug is walking around with a piece.
Yeah.
The cops are walking around
Well,
with a
that's
piece.
one of the arguments with the guns is that, look, bad guys are going to get what they're going to get regardless.
Right.
You take the guns off the street from the people who do it legally, they're going to, the other side, the bad guys are going to end up getting them.
I'd
So
rather have
can't-
it and not
can't
need
touch
it
the Second Amendment.
than need it and not have it.
Right. I agree. Can't touch the Second Amendment. Second Amendment has to be etched in stone and not moved.
Yeah,
And,
that's one that a lot of people, and
yeah.
you see it because they try every week, every month, every year to chip away at it.
Yes, they do. Yep.
And in some places it's successful, but in other places it's
not.
you're just never going to
You
change
can't.
it.
You can't. America was founded under
Rebellion.
revolution, right?
Yeah.
And that's the type of country at our heart that we are, and it's the rebellious spirit of the country that
Yep. That keeps us going.
Yeah, and it's
And everybody knows that abroad.
they do.
People are
They do.
aware that we're like this
Yeah.
wild culture.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yep. And the Second Amendment was one of the reasons that it's it's given us so much protection in so many cases, and it really keeps that First Amendment from being, if you want to chip away at the First Amendment, then having a citizenry that has no weapons or no ability to protect themselves, they can do that pretty easily. So I just think that it's something
Funny
that,
because there's some people out there who would call what we're talking about buffoonery.
yeah,
And I don't, there
yeah.
are some people who just the
Yeah.
sight of a gun,
yeah, Yep.
like they think that we're people who love to rub the guns
Yep.
and
Not
massage
at
the
all.
guns. I don't, no.
Not at all.
It sits in a dark corner.
Yep.
But you know what? The day that I need it is the day that I'll need it.
That's it. And come hell or high water.
And it's none of their business.
Right. It's not any of their business unless they're going to come protect my
Right.
family.
And they're not.
Right.
Because in a time of serious
Yep.
chaos, seconds are minutes, minutes are hours.
Yep. You're also seeing a lot of people who argued against guns
Who
now
are
they're-
buying guns, and it's hard for them to buy them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
And they're upset with their
they're
own policies.
they're asking their buddies who had guns, "Can I buy a gun off you?" And
Doesn't work that way, pal.
yeah, better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
You and I think that in this country, like I said, the rebellious spirit of America lives on, and it's
You know what the problem is? Again, I think that a common theme we're going to get through in this show is
Mm-hmm.
it really comes down to parenting with everything in life.
yeah,
And if you have a little bit of a kooky child and they never get the attention they need and there's
Oh, yeah.
firearms and drugs and
Yep.
I mean, that's really always the situation with these like crazy people
Yeah.
that do these horrible things. Parents have to step up, teach your kids.
Yeah.
If you see like successful, well-trained people with firearms,
Yes.
chances are from the time they were little kids, they had a parent or a grandparent or
Yes.
somebody who did the job required of them to explain how to handle a situation like this, how to hold this,
they respect the
They
power that
respect
they
it.
have in their hand. Also,
some
and
people
they
don't
do.
know.
Yep.
But then you go on Instagram and you get a lot of these thugs who are always like,
Well,
with
those
their-
morons are
and they
always
shoot themselves on
yeah,
accident. They deserve it though.
those jackasses are always going to exist, and
Right.
it's they're basically they always find their way to trouble. They'll
Right.
always find their way to get a piece. They'll always find their way to have weapons, and I'd rather just have the ability.
What
to
don't
protect
criminals
my
care
family.
about? The law.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it doesn't matter. You could tell them that they can't do anything, and they'll find a way to do it.
I'd rather go down fighting.
And then they want to defund
Then-
the police.
yeah.
So
Well-
the reaction time to a crime is going to be even
Yeah,
longer.
sure.
And they may not even show.
Right. Well, that's a whole.
So, I'm
that's
just
a-
throwing things at
Yeah,
you, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
these are like this is what's happening these days.
The
So-
the whole gun culture and stuff. That's unfortunately the press portrays people who are for guns in a certain way, and it's always going to be that way. You never. But it comes down to, for me, it's a fundamental issue of being able to protect my family.
Right.
And I would rather go down swinging,
Right, than
protecting
just
my family,
give myself away.
than give myself away and give my family's
Well, that's
safety away.
the Japanese mentality.
Yeah, you go down in a blaze of glory. You have to, because I don't ever fool myself into thinking that somebody's there to protect me.
No.
And I and what somebody else says and what they feel as far as
Just because you say you're going to protect me,
Right.
doesn't mean I got to believe that you're going to protect me.
Exactly.
I don't have to believe.
Right.
Nobody out
Right.
there listening
Right.
to this
Talk is
has
cheap.
to believe anything.
Talk is cheap,
Right.
and if they, until that event, and you see it all the time, like these riots, the poor people that were standing on their lawn with the guns.
Oh, the St. Louis couple?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's brutal.
That is brutal. That is a brutal case, but
It's almost like racially motivated.
yeah, it's just but I couldn't imagine though being, having a mob of people standing outside my house screaming, and posing threats against my family, and this is not even talking about the St. Louis couple. This is just talking about guns in general. Until that mob comes, and having been to one of those protests and trying to oppose them or just kind of keep it in check from getting out of hand, until you stand in front of an angry mob shouting and threatening you, you have no idea the amount of fear that goes through you and uncertainty and what can happen to your family. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let somebody else decide my family's safety for me. And, to this day, I'm an ardent supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm not a member of the NRA, and I don't go that far with it, but I respect the fact that they do.
I've been considering it more and more.
Yeah, I respect the fact that they do fight for the Second Amendment.
Right.
And, they do need support. And, the world is just becoming more and more, even though there were, with increasing technology, it's supposed to be a safer place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that way. I don't feel the world is becoming a safer place. Yeah, we don't have World War II like what the kids grew up with then, but it's more of this homegrown.
Right, your neighbor could break in your house
exactly,
and shoot you.
Right. And there's more anger on the streets than there's ever been.
It's funny. I want to bring up a point about Ecuador.
Yep.
Okay, so when you go down to Ecuador, just about every house is surrounded by a cement wall that's about 12 feet tall. And on the
see
top
that in
of
a lot of countries.
Right,
now,
and on the top of the walls are shattered glass that are in the
barbed
cement.
wire or glass.
But the glass is even more brutal. You don't even realize.
Sure.
It's like it'll really get you.
Yeah.
So they do the barbed wire, they do the glass, and then underneath they have electric. Because the fences don't touch
they don't
the
touch
ground
the ground.
totally.
Yeah.
So there's these electric wires. I mean, why are they doing that? Here, and what my greater point is all I have is a little glass window pane.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
Somebody could walk right in here. I don't even have a barrier around this place.
No,
right?
you have to be able, in the case of an emergency, to do what's necessary to ensure that at the very least you have a fighting chance.
Right.
And
and that's like Part B of the amendment. Part A is to rebel against a tyrannical government.
Yes. Yep. And that's but people are only gonna highlight the weaponry aspect of it. But like I said, in order to protect the First Amendment, you got to have that Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And these other countries though that you see now, a lot of especially in the Middle East, if there's people from America staying in these areas, you always see the walls surrounding the house, and that's the way it's just the nature of the beast in some of these countries, and to them it's not abnormal. The problem is in America.
I want both. Yeah. I want the wall and I want the armory.
Yeah. Well, nobody. I don't know in this town if you could get the papers to do
the permits for the walls. They may not like that.
Yeah, I put a little fence in front of my house, and I had every neighbor coming over to me.
Right. What's going on?
Yeah, did you get the papers for that? I couldn't imagine building a brick wall in front of my house, but
down there it's just these big gray cement walls, and well, believe it or not, they don't always work.
No, I know.
People still find a way.
People want to get in; they're going to get in, and you got to be able to protect yourself, and that's what it comes down to. So, I think also I was just going to say during the podcast that we do, this was our first week doing it, and we decided to kind of keep it light, just BS between each other a little bit, just gain a foothold and get used to using the equipment. But now I think you're going to begin to see topics where each episode could be topical, and we're going to have, the entire episode isn't going to have just one topic, but it's going to be where we discuss a particular point. We want the feedback from people, and the goal is, again, the more discussion people have and the more people from both sides are able to sit down together and kind of reach a consensus decision, the more this country will better itself. And
I was watching Nancy Pelosi last night, giving her, this just to your point.
Yep.
The common theme and the common phrase she kept saying, she must have said it about 10 times in 15 minutes, is that we don't share values. Right. And that is why the negotiations are so hard at the top. But I feel like, why don't we share values? Because some of my most liberal friends, at the end of our arguments, we always say, hey, wow, how strange. We both want the same thing.
Yeah.
I want a good world for you.
Yep.
You want a good world for me. So what's the problem?
That's what humans want. And, it's just, again, some people, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, you're gonna have people who, not everybody's going to agree with you, and not everybody's going to be able to. But no person should be able to just have, absolute control over everything.
Right.
And and until these people can sit down and really come up with some meaningful dialogue, we're not going to see any type of improvements. And again, I think nowadays, though, I'm seeing a lot more people on the left are the ones that don't want to hear
Mix.
dialogue from the other side.
Sure.
And, guys and gals, that is the only way that anything is ever going to be achieved. And, until events actually happen to you, until, a lot of people, they come out gung-ho for certain things and they support certain things. And until something affects you directly or you have an issue, or again, myself personally, I've had issues where due to my skin color, I was denied a position at a workplace. I was
How many
also
times?
It's occurred twice, and the second time wasn't an actual denial of the position, but they were forcing me to go and try to get people who were a different skin color than me for jobs. Where they
Take your
weren't
job, too.
right, where they weren't just opening it up to the general
They were
public.
just talking about
Right.
the same thing.
So my experience, when I argue with people, and if I God forbid voice my point of view that, there are cases where it is happening against white people for work and against whites, violence on the streets. People are ready to crucify me for saying it.
Right.
And until you actually hear my life experience, hear what I have to say, because I can promise you, if you actually heard what took place, and I've heard this from other people as well, where they were in the same position I was, then you might be able to understand why I take the philosophy I do. And I don't have any ill will or animosity towards people of a different skin color at all. I don't fault them. But the system itself is what I fault. And, you got to blame the game and not the player.
Right.
And that's that's how I felt all along since it's happened to me. But I want to get into that further, and I want to discuss also the fact that in today's day and age, you can't come out against anything that is seen as the party line or the company line, and if you do, your livelihood is attacked, your family is ridiculed, and you are basically shunned and ostracized from people at large, who are on the other side. And I think that has to all be brought out to light. And until it is, and these issues are swept under the carpet, we're just going to get worse and worse and worse. So hopefully,
I'm not going to be friends with someone spitting in my face, trying to tell me that I'm this or I'm that. And that's often the case if you're out on the main street.
Yeah.
You have these crazy people walking down the street, their green hair, whatever the hell they're doing, and they're clapping in your face, telling you that you're a Nazi, telling you that you're a racist, telling you that you're a white supremacist.
Yep.
No, I'm not.
Yep.
In fact, I have relatives who fought Nazis.
Yep.
And in some cases died over there.
Yep.
Or saw friends die. So that whole rhetoric has to stop because I see it going on both sides. I actually see the right calling the left Nazis and the left calling the right Nazis.
Yep.
Eventually, that's toxic.
Yeah.
That
Meanwhile,
is toxic.
neither side has
Neither
actually
side
seen
has
real Nazis.
Right.
Before.
Nobody. Right.
But the
if there was Nazis, you would be aware.
Yeah. It's a complicated issue. Even things when they talk about reparations, or they talk about, increasing the job search for minorities. Look,
Well, the question is, do you want a Band-Aid or do you want an actual fix?
And also, it's a very complicated issue because the people who, if you're going, let's just even take reparations. If you're going after reparations, why are the people who were here, let's say it's a family of white people who came here in 1950.
Right.
What on earth are they paying reparations for? They weren't even in this country.
It almost seems like there should be global reparations then.
Well, in that case, if there's
just
going to be global reparations, there's going to be reparations for the Jews,
right?
For different
all
Muslims. Yeah, there's all groups have been wronged at one time or another, and it doesn't. We're not belittling the black plight in America. Like I said, to me, equality. Everybody is equal. Whoever's more qualified gets the job. I don't Skin color to me is not. I don't see it. I don't care if somebody's nice, if they're respectful. Then sit down across my table at dinner and let's have a bite together. I could care less. Religion, same thing. I don't care if somebody is,
Atheist,
different
Muslim.
sexual. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. But don't tell me what I should believe. Don't tell me what I have to do
Based upon
to make
how you
things
look.
Right. Right. Don't go there with me, because that is going to create an issue. And as the weeks go on, we're going to dig deeper into that, and I hope to get some feedback on this from people, because I really want the public or people who take part in this podcast to kind of guide where we go with it, because it is an issue of, for society at large. And, you just have two guys' viewpoints right here. We're going to get people in to kind of sit down and discuss the issues with us, but I do want to get some feedback from people.
Plain and simple, I want to see everybody free.
Yeah.
I want this to be the freest country that it can be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you want. I think that's what everybody wants on both sides of the aisle.
We live in the best country in the world. I don't care what anybody says. To this day, it is the best country. Go live somewhere else. Look, the guy, I encourage people to watch some videos like I watched of the guy that lived in China who, when he went there for the first year or two, was raving about it. I watched the progression of his show, raving about China, saying, I can't believe people say how terrible it is here, and this country blows away the United States. Now that he's been there for 14 years and has people from different parts of the police and government coming to his door because they feel his podcast is stepping out of line a little bit, and his threats are being made against different
that's
family
slowly
members.
creeping over here.
Right, and that's what we're trying to
and
draw
it's
the
funny
light
because
on.
there's this outcry. We want Huawei. We want these Chinese telephone.
No.
Get out.
Yep. You don't
Go
want
away. Stay in China. We don't want your crap. We don't want especially your spy technology.
No.
Because that's what it is. And it's true that it's true they don't care what kind of porn you're watching. Like that's they're going to see my phone directly.
Right.
It's not that, but there's people who work for intelligence
Yes.
agencies who have personal phones.
Yep.
And so keep your stuff over there.
Yeah. Well, that's hopefully what we're going to draw some light on. And, like I said, the idea is we live in a great country, but until people are able to sit down and put some of these differences and unfortunately, with the election coming up, these differences are only going to become more and more pronounced.
We'll be here for it, though.
Yeah, we will be here
have
for
plenty
it.
of commentary.
And I'm sure the topics will rise to the surface where we'll have to tackle them, because people could be idiots. And we're going to have people out there that are going to do things that are going to be hard to believe, and they're going to say things that are going to be, we're going to do a double take. So please.
They might bring back the Russia collusion again. You never know.
Well. Look, if Trump wins the election, anything they could do to dispel the victory is they'll bring it up, So,
but I still believe that they're no match for him. There maybe
Biden in a debate with him, it's going to
match.
be it's going to be an interesting race.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So
It's the new sports.
it is.
It really is.
It is. And I'm sure there won't be people sitting in the stands, I guess, watching the debates, but
Which isn't fair either, because that adds a degree of pressure to each candidate to not fumble on their words, to not say,
Yeah.
But if we're just sitting here in this room and it's just me and you, we can have a very casual conversation.
Casual Fridays, thus the hat.
I think
kicking back.
definitely casual's the way.
Yeah.
Casual's the way. Comfortable, cozy, and casual. So I guess with that, we're going to leave it there for today, huh?
I think we will leave it there, and we're going to next week begin to take on some topics of relevancy where each episode will tackle something and kind of just stick with that particular topic and beat it to death a little bit, and have you guys hopefully give us some feedback on it and see where that takes us. And again, we're always going to make room for just general discussion and banter, because that's what humans are. We're a talkative lot, and we like to kind of discuss things with each other and just find what makes everybody tick. So hopefully everybody has a good weekend, and we will see you guys back here next week.
All right, and with that, we'll talk soon. Ciao for now.
Ciao, ciao.